Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. Welcome aboard to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games Podcast. This is the GX Show, the Gamer Experience Show for September 2021, Part 3. And of course, I am not here alone. With me, I have fellow co-host, Mr. Swissguard. How you doing, Swiss?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. And Mr. Towmaster99, how are you?
I'm sleepy. That's why I am tonight.
Well, I apologize about that. I ran late because we had some evening, nighttime, bedtime shenanigans that did not go according to plan. But we got the show off the ground as it is, and we are going right now on a wing and a prayer until I get a chance to check in on the audio mix to make sure mics and everything are coming out good. But we're going to go ahead and proceed. As always, we are here to talk about the games that we've been playing for the last couple of weeks, our PickZ assignment, which was our little homework assignment that we kick around amongst ourselves, and anything else under the sun that we have been up to in the gaming world. Next week and last week, in the weeks in between, we go through game industry news deep dive, but tonight we're here to talk about the games that we love to play. And we got a lot of stuff to get through tonight, so Cal, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to hold on.
I'll try to stay awake. I'll slap myself.
So we're going to start off at the top of the show with the new releases that have been at play. And,
You need to close out for them? No? Do it.
And, now I'm discombobulated by I'll pull it back together because we are podcast professionals. I have been up to a couple of new games. I've been exercising Game Pass quite a bit. But I'll start off with the talk of Deathloop, which I've been playing on PC. This is a game that a lot of us were, or at least I was, hype about when we first saw it introduced at E3. I think in 2019 was the first time we saw it.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So this is a game that is available on PlayStation 5 by Arcane Studios, the guys who are responsible for making Dishonored 2. Actually, as I was working on this assignment, I came across the fact that they are also responsible for Wolfenstein New Blood, which is maybe not the height of their development prowess, but which they did. I thought that was a Machine Games game because they're the ones who have done all the Wolfenstein games, but actually Arcane worked on Deathloop. I haven't played that much of Deathloop itself, and one of the reasons it's an interesting nit in the tale of this game. There has been a lot of very careful messaging about the roguelite elements in this game, which I don't think I'm going to have to wait until I get a little further into it. I don't think it's that much worse than there are some games. Quite frankly, Psychonauts has some of that element where there are a number of instances that you get to attempt a level or a mission, and then after you are killed, I think twice, you are sent back. Now, whether or not you're sent back to the very beginning to start your entire run through, or are just sent back to the beginning of that level, I'm not entirely sure. But there is a warning message. So you get about, I don't know how far into the game, but you get past a lot of the introductory and a lot of the tutorial and understanding, what your weapons are and things that you have at your disposal and the first kind of inklings of what the progression system are. And then you exit kind of this introductory area at the beachhead where you initially wake up. And then you kind of get into the game proper. You kind of get to that first area that is not just the beachhead, just the place where you originally showed up. And there's a warning message that comes up on the screen that explains like these roguelike elements to you. And that's actually where I stopped. Partially because when that warning message came up, I looked at it. I kind of mulled it over in my head. Looked at it again. I said, I think I'm going to shut my eyes for about 10 or 15 minutes and just get a quick nap because it's kind of the middle of the night. I gamed late. I'm just going to recover some energy. And then when I got up, I was like, I don't know that I have the energy to figure this out tonight. I don't know that I have the energy to dump a bunch of time into this game to then get kicked out and start. Because if I go back to the beachhead, I'm just not a gamer who likes roguelite elements. That is not my bag at all. I just felt like I didn't want to roll the dice on it that late at night, that particular night in the middle of the week. I'm going to get back to it. I love arcane games. I played Dishonored and Dishonored 2 and Prey, which, as a lot of people have been commenting on the internet and Twitter, people didn't talk about Prey. People didn't give Prey enough praise. I thoroughly, enjoyed that game. But I just wasn't up for this particular meal on that particular night. Like I said, I'm going to get back to it, but kind of the way that it's been handled, where there's been such an insistence to not call the elements roguelike or roguelite, just kind of left me with a slight amount of distaste and a slight amount of distrust of what I was about to get into. So I kind of turned it off and left it alone. It looks gorgeous. I will say that the voice acting is amazing. This is absolutely maybe some of the best voice acting that I've heard personally in a game, and right up there with the Last of Us games and Uncharted and what's the other game that springs to mind? God of War. So right up there with a lot of the PlayStation, with the Sony games that I think of when I think about great voice acting and great scripting. So I really like it, and a lot of it comes from ad libs from the actors, where they just kind of played off of each other, and so it's a really awesome voice acting cast. And it looks gorgeous. So I'm playing it on an RTX 2070 right now, and so it looks good. The other game that I've been dipping my toes into is Psychonauts, which actually I'm a little more bullish on than Deathloop right now, which is very surprising because I'm very much more a shooter guy than a third-person action-adventure type guy. And Psychonauts isn't even a third-person action-adventure, which is what I kind of came into it thinking. It's really at its heart a platformer, which really moves it down lower on my genre list of what I personally acclimate to. But it's quirky and it's interesting. Some of the elements of it that make it good are exactly the types of things that I worry about whether or not I'm going to stick with it a lot. There are components of complexity that I find surprising to be in a platformer type game, and they're attractive, but I just don't know if that particular peanut butter is going to mix well right in that chocolate. So there are. I mean, I'm just at the outset of the game. You have 4 different psychic powers. I don't know if this is one of those games that's going to give you a bunch of stuff up front and then rapidly take it away, which is a thing that makes me cranky. But they give you 4 different psychic powers right at the outset of the game, and then they introduce you to the progression system. So I'm like, I have all of these powers, and now there's additional stuff, and the additional stuff that they're throwing at you is very much kind of in a Destiny 2 fashion, where there's different vectors of progression for you to open up and unlock. Like a vending machine that is very kind of Bioshock-ish is what it makes me think of, and a little Borderlands, where you can go and you can like purchase and spend points to go down different progression paths. But I find, at least at this point, that it's not laid out in a nice, orderly, organized manner like Destiny 2 is. And even Bioshock was, Bioshock feels a little messy when you first get into it, but once you kind of get over that initial hump, you start understanding how things are laid out. Borderlands, at least the first one, was very, very neat and very organized, right, in terms of its progression system. But this, I just find it just be this random, eclectic sprawl of stuff that I'm going to have to spend some more time going back to and kind of mapping it out in my head and understanding it. I'm not personally super crazy about the art style, but I'm realizing now I'm just a 90s kid who, read The Dark Knight and, just kind of needs everything to kind of be gritty, kind of in that 1990s fashion, right? Just even like, with, going through just into the 2000s. I can't remember if The Matrix was 1999 or 2000, but, even with things like The Matrix, where like everything's got to be kind of that gritty kind of, takes itself too serious kind of artistic panache is what I tend to acclimate to. So that's taking me a little getting used to. I'm kind of in a mode where I'm trying to allow myself to indulge in the whimsy of, not only this game, but other games as well. But I will say the gameplay is pretty awesome. It doesn't feel like it needs this super precision, which is really what turns me off in platformers, where you're a micrometer off from where you should jump off the edge of the platform, and therefore you miss the entire jump. And like I said, it gives you a ton of tools to surmount obstacles in very interesting ways. So it moves gravity around on you. It lets you wall slide. It lets you climb. It lets you levitate in the air. It lets you double jump and levitate in the air, and so you can string those things together. So you can jump and hold your jump. Again, things that feel very similar to, in some ways, to Destiny 2 platforming, where you sometimes have to hold your jump to the maximum extent and then hit your double jump to be able to cross certain obstacles. And then on top of that, in Psychonauts 2, then you're able to connect that to a levitate as well. And then there are updrafts that then can extend that even further. You have telekinesis, so you can pick things up and throw them at people. So again, it's almost kind of like a tour de force Bioshock, where they take all of the powers of Bioshock and just throw them at you. And the difference in approach, in Bioshock, it's a stingy approach, right? You have all these powers, but you can only access them like 2 at a time. But this gives you, at least a set of 4 that you can access right off the bat. So I've had fun with it. It's great voice acting. I'm starting to enjoy a lot of the different characters, and there's just a flavor of kind of the sinister. Obviously, the news story behind this is that there's a lot of things that the game is addressing that involve like mental health and things like that, and you can, beneath this kind of whimsical surface in the artistic style, as I hear things and I see things unfolding in the game, the things that are leaping to my mind are things like Inception, things like The Cell, things like, I cannot remember the name of this blasted movie, but it was the DiCaprio movie, I think with Michelle Williams, and spoilers if you haven't seen it, I think this movie is like 10, 15 years old, but he's a cop, and the story is that you think that the wife murdered the kids and that the wife is in an asylum, but it turns out at the end of the movie, the flip is that he's actually the one in the asylum and he's going to be lobotomized, and it was actually him who killed his wife and family and kids. And so there's all of these scenes, these surreal scenes of like craziness, right? These attempts to depict, somebody who's mentally ill and going into their head and seeing all the things that they would see. But those are the kind of the 3 movies that kind of leap to my mind, because I feel like things in this game are hinting at things like that. And you feel sad, I think, for some of the characters, at least I do, as you see some of this unfolding. So those are the 2 new titles that I've been getting into. Tao, do you want to talk to us about your new toy?
Yeah, real quick though, did you play the original Psychonauts?
I did not. And again, because this is the type of game that I just never reach for. It's the type of game that I'm like, yep, interesting. I'll let you guys play that. I'm not going to get into it. But no, I did not play the original.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you had it on there. I was like, oh, okay. Playing Psychonauts. Yeah, so I actually got the Oculus Quest 2, which is a VR headset. My first one, actually. I've been wanting one for a while. I was kind of holding off just because, kind of get the kinks out and, kind of better the technology. And I had been talking with one of my friends recently, and he had streamed a few of the games that he had. I think he actually has the Rift, I believe. But he was telling me about the Quest, and it's obviously the Quest is a little cheaper and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I can't play the one game that I really wanted to play with him, just because I need a better computer. But maybe one day I can get that. But that one was called Legendary Tales, I believe. It's actually, I think it's a game preview, or not game preview, early access, because I think he got it off of Steam. Kind of like an RPG. You're kind of fighting in these like castle dungeon areas, so that looked kind of cool. But he had showed me other ones too, which I'll talk about actually later. But the other one I'll talk about right now is Township Tale, and that one is kind of, I'd call it like a survival RPG. So you can do a bunch of crafting and you got to gather a bunch of stuff. I'm pretty early into that one though. I just started playing that one, so I did like the tutorial level, and then I kind of wandered around the first area you go to, or at least you get into. I don't know how open it's technically it's supposed to be an open world, but I don't know how open it actually is. So, well, I want to play a lot more of it and check it out. But that one, it's actually pretty interesting because, like I said, you have to have to chop down trees and then chop it down even further, like a couple more times, just to get to like wood blocks or like wood sections to craft different kind of things. And there's all kinds of other things you can pick up, like rocks. Obviously, that's kind of a staple in a survival game, like grass. And I had to make they kind of in the tutorial they show you how to make like a basket or like almost like a backpack. But this one you actually have to carry around all the time, which I thought was kind of weird. But I mean, I guess they're kind of showing off the technology in there. But so yeah, obviously when you have a little bit of inventory on your person, on yourself, but then obviously with the basket, it like tripled, I think, my inventory space. So that was kind of nice. And other than that, there is like fighting and like dungeons I think you can do in this game too. I don't think I'm close to doing that yet. So like I said, I'm pretty early on this game, but it was a good introduction to the Quest, to just the VR headset in the first place, just because it's not, I don't have to move super fast or anything. I'm just kind of like dawdling around the play area, so I'm not like getting dizzy or anything like that. There's a couple other games I'll talk about later on where there was a little bit of I wouldn't say motion sickness, but it was just more kind of disorienting that happened as I was playing this game, just because I had what is it called? A Daydream, I believe, for the Google phones, which I only played a few games on there, and I was usually like sitting down on those ones. So, I mean, I didn't really feel anything there. But here I'm actually like standing up. Like all these games I played that I'll talk about tonight, I know I was standing up and moving around. So, or at least in like a little square area or rectangle area. So, but no, I'm pretty impressed with the Quest 2. The graphics look good so far the games I've played on. I mean, obviously, like if you can actually plug it into the computer, and like I said, I don't have a powerful enough a computer. I tried on the one laptop I had, but it's not. Actually, I think the graphics card is not compatible with what I need to run the games on the system.
So that was one of the things I was going to. So you are playing in the standalone mode then?
Yeah, okay. So just standalone mode right now. Yeah, and even like I said, even then, I mean, it looks fine to me. So I mean, I wasn't really expecting anything like super great, anyways, just because I knew it was going to be standalone. So. No, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with it. Just setting up, well, it's pretty easy. You just use your phone to do the initial setup on the Quest 2. You do have to get a Facebook account, which I was like, but I just made like a dummy account, so I mean that's no big deal. Made that, and it was, I think, pretty much like 5 minutes, maybe less than that. That I signed up and connected to the Quest headset, and I was off and running. So, and I didn't get to play as much as I would have liked to this past week. So I'm still kind of learning the ropes on just the interface and stuff like that. But it's pretty good so far.
So have there been any games that you've come across that are things that like you wanted to play, but because I want to say because there are games that are at a performance level that they require you to be connected to a PC. Is that correct? Like not everything will play standalone.
Right. Correct. Yeah. There's only certain ones I can. Like I can only use the Quest Store. Okay. Like I can't go on to like you can use Steam VR and stuff, but you have to be connected to the PC for that kind of stuff. So and I obviously can't do that. But yeah, just the standalone like Quest Store I can go into, and I think they might open up more like when you're plugged into the PC. But obviously I can only see what's compatible with the Quest when I'm standalone. So yeah. Okay. There's some good looking games though that I've seen. I know my friend keeps telling me about. What's it called? The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. That's supposed to be really good. And that looks like, I mean, the graphics on that look really, really great too. So I'll probably pick that up. That's only a single player game, but he said it was really good. So I'll probably pick that up eventually too. So.
And you did say this is your first VR headset, right?
I'm sorry?
You did say this was your first. Did you say this was your first, or did you game?
Technically, it's the first good one, I guess. Okay. Like I said, I had the Daydream, but I mean that's kind of right. It was all right.
So how is so let me ask. So one of my things is like I think I've talked to you guys before. When I've been deep into VR, and I still have all this hardware. I don't play as much anymore, but like one of the things I contend with is like I don't like being submerged in that experience, right? I hate, to a certain extent, having the headset on and not being able to see, combined with having headphones on where I can't hear anything. And so for me, I only play at night after everyone's gone to bed, and I lock my door, right? Because what I don't ever want to have happen is have me be, reaching out or swinging, right, and wind up hitting like a kid or something that has walked into the room. So, I mean, how are you managing the logistics part of that, and like when are you gaming, and when are you comfortable gaming in your VR headset?
I mean, normally when I'm gaming anyway, it's just like on the Xbox or anything. I do it later at night when most everybody, or at least my kids, asleep anyways. So, and my wife's like laying down or something. So, I mean, in that regard, it's not probably going to be a problem for me. But there is, which I actually just learned. I was watching some videos earlier in the week where there's an option in there, and I think it's like what they call one of the experimental features, where you can actually you turn this switch on, and you can actually just tap the side of the headset, and it'll flip to the the outside cameras, so you can kind of look around and see everything instead of having to go through you have to go fumble through the settings and all the menus and stuff to get that to appear. So it's kind of nice. Okay, so I'll have to actually try that out too. So the hearing thing, yeah, that's kind of a problem. Like I was just using the headset's speaker so far, so I haven't actually totally immersed myself with a headset, which I probably will do. Just some of the games I'll talk about later, or the one game that I'll talk about later. There's probably be better to have a headset on than just using the Rift's external speakers. So
that was the other thing. So is the Oculus Quest the one that has off ear, they're integral to the headset itself, but they actually sit off ear, but you can still hear them?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have the Rift S. So it does not have the ear. I don't think it has the earphones like that. So you wind up having to wear headphones or a headset with it. But the gate or the safety fence that you're talking about feature that's on the Rift S, but it only, at least when I was using it, it only activated when you hit the perimeter, and then it would snap to that view. But just before I kind of put it away the last time, they were talking about the feature that you mentioned. So I think that's been rolled out as a software update. So I probably have it too. It just wasn't available at the time, and now I got to figure out how to turn that on. Because that's what I said that from the very first time that I got the Rift S out of the box and was using it. I was like, I want to be able to manually turn this feature on whenever I want to. I don't want it solely limited to when I hit the fence.
Yeah. And they have the one thing like you were mentioning, the Guardian is what they call it on the Quest. Yeah. So yeah. As soon as you you can kind of break with your hand, and you still see just the play area. But as soon as you put your head through it, then you see you'll see the actual real world. It's just black and white, kind of grainy. But I mean, you can still see what's around you. So it works. So what you would need.
So yours only activates when the headset goes through? Because on mine it activates anytime if you punch the controllers through the Guardian perimeter, then it snaps to that view.
Yeah, so far I've only noticed it when I put my head through. I've actually put my arm almost up to my elbow, and it's still just the grid that I could see. So it wasn't until I actually put my head through, and then I was it popped up. So I don't know, maybe there's a sensitivity setting in there that I don't know about, but or if it's different for the Quest, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least you see the border. You do see the border come up, so you actually know. Once you've hit the little outline that you've created for yourself. So. So it's kind of nice.
All right, man. Well, let's go on and let's talk about our Picks Plays report, and let's get our co-host Switchguard here on the mic. So the Picks Plays report is our assignment that we give to each other. We draft it up, and then at the end of the show, we issue the assignment to all the co-hosts, and we incorporate that into our playlist for the intervening 2 weeks, and then we come here and report out on our experience. We typically try to link it to something that is in the news cycle or the zeitgeist or something that is foremost in people's mind. So the report the last 2 weeks was as follows. A lot of dev shops and publishers have stumbled, misstep, or just completely lost their mojo over the last couple of years. Some of them have taken a positive step or two to right the ship. Play a game from any dev or publisher that has truly stepped in the proverbial cow patty in 2020 or 2021, beyond just a game delay or two due to the pandemic, and has shown a publicly conveyed step or effort to return to green. So the two co-hosts who participated in the assignment, because sometimes not everybody gets a chance to get around to it, actually picked the same game from the same publisher for the same reason, and actually miraculously. It was arguable whether or not they had taken a step in the right direction at the time that we were probably actually playing this, but like literally just within the last 2 days, I would say that they made a definitive step towards kind of righting the ship. And this is about Activision Blizzard, but more specifically Activision. Both Swiss and I played Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War on PC. Obviously, they're in the news now because of what is now the multitude of lawsuits that are in the air from various government agencies all trying to get their piece. And actually, within the last couple of days, it was reported that Activision has made at least one settlement, I think in the realm of $18 million, to at least quell one of the lawsuits. I think the one that was being launched by the Equal Opportunity Office, EEOC, I think. So, Swiss, you want to talk a little bit about your experience playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War? Did you continue playing zombies, or did you wrap up the single-player campaign?
I focused on single player. I'll be honest, like I'm kind of looking at your homework on this assignment. I didn't remember the PickZ assignment, and then I saw that you had picked that game, and I was like, ooh, all right. I played that game this couple of weeks. I'll put that on there. So I apologize. But at least I did the assignment, unlike Time Master 99. But seriously,
shots fired there.
I focused on the campaign, and I'm enjoying the campaign. Like I'm glad that I just happened to. I'm glad I picked it up on sale because I don't think it's like worth $60 for the campaign. But I have very little interest in doing in getting involved in the multiplayer, which is like, I don't know. I guess I'm backwards on it. But after we had that experience with zombies, I mean, it was fun, but it was only fun because I was playing with you and DB. Like it wasn't anything where I'm like got addicted to the game play. But the campaign has been drawing me in. I know it's like a big dumb action movie, but getting into it. So I don't, and this might I guess I feel I think you mentioned you said the word curmudgeonly or something earlier. Like that's how I feel about how I am as a gamer sometimes, because like everything is slipping to this service oriented multiplayer architectures and stuff like that. And I mean, you guys know, like I'm big Sony first party single player experience guy, and that's how I'm playing Call of Duty right now. So like I think I said last GX show, it's been a long time since I played a Call of Duty game. After playing this, it's like, hey, they'll be on my radar to play the campaigns when the sale prices hit. But so we'll see how Vanguard goes, and if you know the single player experience is a positive one, I might pick it up on a sale weekend one time.
Yeah, you're playing it the way that I played Call of Duty from Modern Warfare 2 up until the Modern Warfare reboot. So through like 7 or 8 iterations of Call of Duty from like 2000, I don't know, 10, 11 till 2020. I mean, that's essentially what I did. I ignored it when it launched. I waited for it to go on sale, and then I bought it just to play the single player campaign. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, my own personal feeling is like paying $60 for last year's Call of Duty right now is like buying last year's iPhone like 3 weeks before the announcement for the new one, right? But that's awesome that you're getting into it. And you know, a lot of a lot of my own story for tonight is, you know, I allowed myself to indulge in a lot of things that I've been holding myself back from for the last couple of years. And I had a great experience while I was doing that. Like, there needs to be room for, like, the big dumb action movie that's worthwhile and effective. I love coming home, you know, or getting down here late at night and just booting up a console, or, you know, bringing up an easy to get into first person shooter that doesn't have a huge cognitive load, right, to restart and get into it, versus like I'm playing some 4X game and I haven't played for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like what was I doing? What was my strategy? Like, what part of the geography was I working on now, and having to like remember and unpack all that. So I'm
going to jump off of that point.
Yeah.
For one of my later games, by the way.
No, awesome. So this is probably, unfortunately, gonna maybe be my last like detailed Call of Duty report, at least for a while. But I played this game also for my assignment. I was playing the multiplayer. This was season 5. Season 6 has not started yet, right? Yeah. So this was me grinding through. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, no, yeah, sorry, I forgot I was
muted.
muted, yeah.
So this was me continuing to grind through levels like 88 through like 94, 95 of the Battle Pass. They have done something this season where they have tweaked progression in the Battle Pass. Like the season 4 Battle Pass, I finished like 3-4 weeks before the season was even over. But they have done something, particularly in those late 80s and the 90s battle tiers, where they have slowed progression way down. And in fact, I did not complete the Battle Pass. I just, in fact, it was kind of going through that grind that caused me to sit back and contemplate some of the ways of my life for the last couple of years. It caused me to make a pivot. But during the time that I did play, some of the things I enjoyed, I liked the new weapons that got added in Season 5, so the EM2 Assault Rifle and the Tech 9 SMG. I know a lot of Sturm and Drang and grousing about the Tech 9, and maybe that's appropriate, but the way I feel, I was just talking about this with some friends on Twitter the other day, I feel like if they put a weapon in the game, like, and they balance it, like, if you don't agree with the balancing, that's fine, but like if it's in the game, I consider myself, free and authorized to use it. Like I used to be in my younger years, I used to be like, that's the cheesy weapon, and like, no honorable gamer, would use that, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm over that. So I didn't use the Tech 9 very early on, but I did see it in several play of the game clips several times, and that was the first thing that kind of tipped me off. I'm like, wow, that guy's really clapping some shots with that Tech 9. So once I got access to it and got it unlocked, I went ahead and went after that. I think there were some new pistols this season 2, the shotgun pistols that I saw some people running around with, and they must have like gave themselves over to progressing that, because then I saw people running around with the dual wielded shotgun pistols, which like you don't unlock until you grind all the way through level 50 or level 50, weapon level 50 or 55 for that weapon. So good on them. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be interested in that. They introduced a double agent mode this season, which had all the controversy that it was just Among Us in Call of Duty dressing. I'm like, whatever. Everybody copies everybody. Like, yeah. I don't know. At any rate, that is not a mode that I played. It seemed way too complicated. Probably only worked well with friends when you're on team comms. I play with randos. I didn't think was a mode that would lend itself to randos. And it seemed like those matches would take too long. One of my insistences when I play Call of Duty is that, I stick to the modes where the round's going to be over in 5 to 10 minutes, because that lets me play, 9 or 10 rounds in a night and juggle, loadouts in between. So that was the way I found it most enjoyable. And I do really like the maps that they introduced this season. So Echelon, Slums, which were both 6v6 maps, Showroom, and Drive-In. And I don't think I ever got a chance to play on Zoo. I had pulled that into the rotation, but I never really got a chance to play it. Echelon is an incredibly complicated map. There are just blind corners like all over the place. You can see across there are sniper lanes where you can see it clear across the other side of the map. There are weird traversals where you have to jump over air gaps to go from one part of the map to the other. So I just felt it was a really great kind of like parkour feeling kind of map that really made combat really complicated. So I enjoyed my time playing on that. And then there was also, and this may have been there the whole time, but there was also it was a 3v3 gunfight map that was knife mode. So it actually did pretty well in that mode, surprisingly. So I was like, yes, that's like a great way for you to actually progress your melee weapons, which I don't spend any time.
Is that like slappers only in GoldenEye or something?
Yeah, yes, yeah. It's a mode where you're only able to use melee weapons. And gunfight is a mode where basically they dictate to you what weapons you get each round. So it's like a shorter mode of search and destroy. Like I can't stand search and destroy because it's like you go. The match is multiple rounds, and so search and destroy just takes too long. But gunfight is a thing that I can actually contend with, and it's one shot, one kill, one death, and then once the other team is wiped, then the round's over. And I think regular gunfight is like first team to 5 wins or something like that, or 6 wins. And so this knife fight is the same mode, and it was 3v3, and they dictate which melee weapon each team gets. So it gives you a chance to try out a bunch of different melee weapons, which again is something that I just don't invest a lot of time in. And I played that on Amsterdam. I probably got another couple maps in there too, but that was pretty awesome. But like I said, that will probably be the last time that I do the battle pass on Black Ops Cold War. So Swiss, you said you're gonna keep an eye on Vanguard and probably look at picking it up next year?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if people like are completely down on the campaign, I won't worry about it. But I every probably about once a year I get the itch to play like a good shooter, and it's as good as any.
Yeah, I expect good things from Sledgehammer. Like I said, I really enjoyed their WW2 game a few years ago, so I'm expecting this one to go well, and I may pick it up early. I don't mind picking it up and playing just for the single player campaign, even though probably won't delve into the multiplayer. So let's keep it on that theme. And so tonight we're going to mostly talk about a lot of shooters and a lot of RPGs for the rest of the show. We'll start off tonight with our shooter segment and our regular round robin of what else we have been playing outside of the PickZ plays. And Tal, I'll let you take it off with Population 1 on the Oculus Quest.
Yeah, so this was probably the one game I spent probably the most time on. So this is their Battle Royale game, basically. And I believe it's, I think you can only get on the Oculus, I think. I don't know if it's just the Quest or the Oculus family of headsets, but so yeah, you get dropped in. I think there's only I'm going to say 30 or 40 people on a map altogether. So it's not, it's not a huge number, but you got teams. You could do teams, maybe solos. I've only done teams so far, and it's only a team of 3. So I like the 3 number. In most battle royale games, it seems to be at the sweet spot. So nice thing about this is since you're in VR and it's first person, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but I mean, kind of lends itself to playing on the Oculus or on the VR headset. And you can climb on any surface. You can actually do some building, which I keep forgetting. So it kind of has a little Fortnite element. But I keep forgetting about the building part, because you have to actually click off your gun. You can't have anything in your hands, and then you can build. So that's a little, which I kind of don't know why, because I'm pretty sure you don't use all the buttons on either controller. So you have, and I forgot to mention this, I guess, too, with the controllers, you have the trigger buttons, and there's another side button, almost like another side trigger. It's got on the side, the inside of the controller. And then you have on each controller, you have 2 just regular buttons. So you got A, B on the right, and then X, Y on the left. And then there's an Oculus button that takes you back, to the menu and stuff like that. But it doesn't seem like you use all these buttons, and then you can click in the sticks too. So I don't know why they did it like that. Maybe it's just kind of to slow the pace of the gameplay down or something. But yeah, so I actually did win one, even though me and my friend were dead, and it was our third person that kind of won it for us. So, but a win is a win, as a wise young Mr. Vin Diesel said in Fast and the Furious. So I actually did get one win so far, which is more than I've done in Warzone still, because I still haven't won a game in Call of Duty Warzone. So it's good. But gunplay is actually...
I was going to say, that begs the question, given that it's like on the Oculus, what is the like server population like? Does it? I mean, is it hard to get that sense, or
No,
do you
I
feel
mean,
like you're in like some kind of abandoned island of video gamers?
you just got thrown in there. No, I mean, you get into fights fairly quickly because the map's not super huge. Since obviously it's not, and you don't have like 100 or I can't even remember what Warzone is. I think it's like 120 or 30 or something ridiculous. It's a fairly small map, and so you can get into fights pretty quickly. And the zone actually seems to shrink fairly quickly too. Usually get like a minute and a half, I think, maybe 2 minutes in between each storm or wall as it's closing in, but it seems to be quicker than that, maybe just like a minute before it starts to shrink. So they're trying. I think they're trying to get you to battle each other. So it's not So it's not just like an empty wasteland that you're playing in. So and then I get into games pretty quickly. So I mean, in that respect, it seems like there's a healthy population out there. So that's nice. The gunplay is really good. So when you're actually, this is another kind of like weird thing, I guess, just because VR, so they had to throw this in. So when you pick up different guns, you actually have to load the clip and then cock it, or however, whatever gun it is, you like slide the slider back, or if it's a sniper, you have the little handle on the side and stuff like that. So, and each gun is different, the way it handles. So it's actually pretty cool. It's kind of cool that you can do that. I just learned how to reload without actually just shooting all my bullets out. So that's kind of nice that I know how to do that now. So I mean, it's another one of those things you just kind of get used to, because it's a different mindset playing on the Oculus and playing in VR. For the most part, I'm trying to think like when I'm moving around, like you kind of move back and forth. Obviously, you don't have to actually move around like physically in the room, but you do have to go side to side a little bit if you kind of peek around corners and stuff like that. So there's all those little things that maybe you don't think about in a regular shooter or regular battle royale game that you kind of have to comes into play here. So it's kind of cool. And then you also have since you can climb and everything, you can actually glide. You have like a kind of a glider, like a wingsuit kind of a thing. When you jump off of something, or when you kind of fall off, there's no jump button, which I guess is probably good. That probably causes people to be sick if they're like just jumping around and the other person's jumping around, you're trying to shoot them and stuff like that. So, but you have this wingsuit that you put your arms out like physically in the real world, and then in the game the guy busts out his wingsuit, so you kind of float around for a little bit. So that's kind of cool. There's only seems to be one map as far as I've seen. I don't know if there's more than one, and I don't know, since I've just started playing, I don't know if they like do any major different things to the map, like on like in Warzone or in like Fortnite and all those other battle royale games. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. So I played mostly by myself, and then I actually had one of my friends come in and play with me. So that was actually kind of nice. So, and far I've seen, I mean, population, the group of people I've played with so far, they've been pretty cool. They've actually helped me along the way. So it's nice to see that kind of, seeing people help you and not just being like, oh, you were a loser. You didn't duck or do something else, when I was supposed to. So it's kind of nice. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, because part of the reason for my pivoting away from competitive multiplayer games was some negative experiences that I had in World of Warships. So very cool that you fell in with a good crowd. So I've taken some time over the last couple of weeks to get back into my Halo replay. I haven't been doing what a lot of people have been doing, which is like dedicatingly setting aside time to go through the entire Halo franchise and the lead up to Halo Infinite. I've just been kind of, it pops up in the rotation every now and then. So I am on Halo 2 now, which is much more of a grind than Reach and Halo Combat Evolved were. There's always a point where a Halo game outstays its welcome, and often that's like in end game, like as you're trying to get the thing wrapped up and like they're throwing something at you that's just like ostensibly like weird, different, or more difficult than like 99% of the rest of the game has been. But Halo 2 feels like it's hit that point sooner in the stride than some of the other games have been. One of the things is like there have been some ridiculous checkpoint saves. Coming from being a PC gamer, I'm not a fan. Anytime I don't have a save anywhere feature, like that just really makes me cranky. But there have been a couple points like in the Halo 2 campaign, and I'm probably in the last quarter of the game. But some points where I've played for like 15 minutes, and then the checkpoint save is like that far back in the rear, like 15 minutes ago, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like the part I'm having problem with has like literally almost nothing to do with the sequence of events that I played through. So I have not been pleased about that. I've been playing it on the Xbox Series S. It obviously looks great with all the graphical upgrades and on a 1440p monitor. One of the things that's interesting about this design is we now can kind of look at this as like a history of Bungie, right, in the arc evolution that they went through in their development style. I always think of the Covenant as, I never think of the Covenant as like a group that like works together. Like the Covenant is made up of multiple races. There's all sorts of infighting amongst the races. That's key and brought to the fore here in Halo 2. But in some of the sequences that I played through as the Arbiter, which I was not a big fan of the Arbiter gameplay when I originally played Halo 2, I'm seeing now, because I had forgotten, like these instances, these scenes of like where the dialogues in the background via different combat sequences, where you can actually hear them call out things that are very akin to the camaraderie in the esprit that like the Marines represent when they're out working with you in different combat scenes. So that's been refreshing because it gives me kind of a different perspective on the Covenant. I'm also realizing now as I'm playing through, I really didn't spend. I think I played Halo 2 mostly as a co-op experience with a buddy of mine who got his original Xbox after I did, and I played it while I was visiting him on a trip. So I don't think I ever had the game myself. It's just why my memory is so fuzzy on certain aspects of Halo 2. So it's been nice going back and getting this refresher. One of the things, though, is it's one of these games where you play as the Master Chief and then you go back and play as the Arbiter, and you go back and forth. And I don't know that I've ever been like a huge fan of that in games. There's always like that other character is always like the second ran, like that you don't like. I'm like, I don't know that I can be bothered to like spend time playing this other character. Like I want to spend time playing the Master Chief. So you're having to deal with that. They do fight a little differently. Their vulnerabilities are a little different. So you have to kind of switch that style up and contend with it, which again is not an entirely pleasant experience. But it's been nice going back and playing a little bit of that again, particularly now in the with the next gen upgrades. The other thing I've been playing is Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, which I didn't even remember this game or know about this game. It actually came out kind of as a DLC pack to Wolfenstein: The New Order the year after Wolfenstein: The New Order came out. So New Order was 2014, Old Blood was 2015, and I just completely lost track of it on the radar. It is actually kind of a spiritual remake of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which was the early 2000s kind of reboot of the series that I played on PC. And I was like, I don't know that we really needed that. Like, just continue the lore from the last like point of departure. But I guess like Machine, because I can't remember who did Return to Castle Wolfenstein, but it wasn't Machine Games. I think they got the IP later. And so I guess they felt the need to go back and touch this lore and kind of make it their own. So I'm like, whatever. One of the things about the Old Blood is that it makes demands on you that are much more in the stealth realm, which, as you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of stealth games. So it's been a little frustrating to kind of have to slow down and go through that. About a few hours into the game, you do learn and recognize and understand that there are instances where you can employ tactics that cut away from that grain. You just have to know what you're doing. Meaning that you can go in and bogart, but you have to be like really quick, so that you don't just get these like overwhelming waves of enemies that you just can't surmount. So, but once you kind of get into that part of the game, it starts being a little more enjoyable in terms of, now I feel like I have choice in my approach. Another game that gives you tons of tools and tons of weapons and different approaches to take with things. So that's good. It takes a while, about 4 hours into it, for you to get a sniper rifle, which you're glad that you have it, because there are just certain tactical instances where a sniper rifle is really the only thing to be used. But by the same token, the sniper rifle also isn't that great for anything other than those tactical situations. And so you get this rifle. I can't remember what the exact name of it is, and then you eventually get a sniper scope attachment to it. And to be quite frank, until you get the sniper scope attachment, you're lugging this weapon around, and it's pretty ineffective any other place up until that point. And then you finally get the scope attachment, and you're like, okay, that's great, but like, why did I have to lug this stinking thing around and like rotate through it, right? Because I didn't know any better in my inventory of weapons that I wanted to use. So, but I have had a good time going back and playing that as well. And then the last shooter that I've played before, if Tao gets back, I let him talk about Onward, and if not, we'll go on and talk through our RPGs. With Sniper Elite 4, which is a game that I have access to because it's a pro game on Stadia. The Sniper Elite series, to talk about and also ran, is a game that typically comes out each year and comes in, sits in my mind as like this alternative shooter that isn't really as good as the other shooters, and so I may play a demo or something of it, but I never really spend a ton of time with it. I'd played one demo of, I don't know if it was Elite 4 or Elite 3, but I'd gotten interested in it, but then it came out and it didn't review super well, so I wasn't super interested in it. But Elite 4 is up on Stadia. It's a pro game. I needed to get some Stadia time in, so I finally spent some time with this game. It's kind of exactly the type of game that I like. It very kind of Far Cry fashion. It kind of lets you look at the map and plan how you want to attack it. You get multiple objectives to take down in a given mission. It kind of reminds me a lot of the original, like the very first Ghost Recon, which was on PC, where you kind of get the sprawling outdoor playground to kind of tactically assess and decide how you're, what sequence in which you're going to go around and take things down. It's one of the, they do a really great job of taking sniping and really, in other games it just feels cheesy, but this is a game that really well balances the feeling of you being tactically powerful in comparison to the enemies that you're up against, but by the same token, giving you edges and veneers of that tactical spectrum where you are not powerful, where you make yourself very vulnerable. But it also isn't limited solely to sniping. So they do things like they give you, it's 50% a stealth game, so you kind of have to go around and remain unseen and unheard. They give you, like, there's generators on the level that, like, if you can set them up to explode if somebody comes over there and touches it or messes with it, but you can also just kick it and make it kind of go wonky and create a bunch of noise, so that if you take out an enemy that's nearby, it muffles the sound so nobody hears it. So I'm like, that's a really awesome mechanic. There are many exploding things on the level, so you could snipe something that somebody's near and just blow it up. When somebody is sniped, like nearby enemies go into high alert. It is not one of these games. We all have seen the games where, like, you've got two AI, you snipe one, that person falls and there's like a bleeding puddle on the ground, and the other AI just walks right by it as if nothing is going on. It does not do that. The AI will actually notice when there's a dead body and react to it. And again, it gives you a ton of tools. So in one instance, they have instances where there might be like German officers in the area, and that's like one of your objectives. And so there was a German officer, but he had an escort with him. So I was like, well, if I snipe one, then the other guy's going to run. Like, how am I going to take these two down? So I actually set, you have mine traps that you can set that have trip lines. So I like set a mine trap and ran the trip line across, and then like fired a shot so that the person heard it, and then they came running around the corner, hit the trip line, that blew them up. The German officer came around the other way because he heard the commotion, and then I was able to kind of hide in the bushes and take him out. So pretty awesome experience. Again, kind of very much in the vein of those things that I like in Far Cry 6 gameplay.
I've had that game in my Steam wish list for quite a while, and it comes on sale frequently, and you can get it for like $7 or $8. So it definitely sounds like that's a good price for it.
Yeah, it feels like there are definitely some like Hitman like elements to it, which but the thing Hitman does, that drives me a little bit nuts is there are times that you feel like you've done something that shouldn't be a reason to set somebody off that you'll do in Hitman, and then like, it's him. And I'm like, what? What did I do? And it's very unforgiving in terms of like a person comes around a corner and literally sees you for a microsecond, right? Like before you slip out of sight or whatever, and then that like trips off a thing. But then it doesn't feel right a lot of times that sometimes that they do see you, and they're on alert for like 20 seconds, and then then they just go back to the regular patrol. So it does things a little better than Hitman in that perspective, but there's a lot of Hitman feel to it as well. So if you're looking for that kind of sandboxy game where you can go around and take things out, by lots of different ways and by ways of your own choosing, then it'd be something you enjoy. So Tally, yeah, I'm sorry.
Quick question.
Yeah,
quick question, real quick on Sniper. Well, actually, I guess because on Stadia. I know. Are you playing Stadia because you have it, because you want to test out the service itself, or is it just part of your rotation? Like, hey, you got Stadia game, so I'm going to play that on Stadia.
It's part of my rotation. I keep my subscription because it is a thing that I see myself being able to utilize, particularly when I go on travel. Like, I like to have alternatives to lugging a honking gaming laptop, or obviously I don't take my consoles with me, but or even like having to take my Nintendo Switch, right? But just being able to take my controller and the tablet or the phone that I already bring, and also just to have those times where, like I mentioned, like I can come home at night, like starting up a beast of 10 fans right in this room to play a PC game, right, is a thing, versus like just grabbing my Stadia controller and going and camping out in front of the TV, and playing a lot of the games that I have, accessible via my Pro subscription. And there's a little bit of an element that to Game Pass, like there are things that come across my windshield that normally I might not like invest time in or try out in my rotation. So that's why I keep it around. I feel like it's a good backup. It's never, we've talked before, it's a lot of the angst on the internet is about like it's not competitive with hardware offerings or on-prem offerings, and I'm like, that was never my intention to use it that way. It was just as, an alternate and a backup. And in case one of these console manufacturers like gets a hair up their butt and does something to tick me off, right, and I go scorched earth, right, and it's another platform that I have in the inventory, because that has happened before. But Tao, you have been playing the last shooter in our discussion tonight, a game called Onward, also on the Oculus Quest.
Yes, so this is a military shooter, first-person shooter, obviously. And I actually played this with 3 other friends, so it was 4 of us playing this. I'm not sure if that's probably the max, I'm assuming, that you could play. But we were actually just playing against bots, just because I think this was the first game, or one of the first games, or first shooter at least, that I had played on the Oculus. So it's kind of nice to have like everybody, at least that I knew, except for the one guy I think I had never met before, or played with. So, but I mean, at least we're all talking and stuff. So, they kind of walked me through, once again, they walked me through just how to play the game. And this is, even with the bots, like you can put the bots levels, up and down, like, easy, medium, hard, or whatever they call it in here. But I think they put it up I think almost all the way, maybe the second to the last highest level. And I was like, I don't know about that, but they still did it. And we actually did pretty good once I got accustomed to the controls. And once again, this is kind of same thing like with Population 1. You got to reload and do all this thing with your guns and stuff like that. And you can choose to have your gun like in the front of you, like hanging off of you, or off to the side. So that's kind of customizable. You have all these pockets and stuff like that, which you have to physically physically, reach down to like pull a grenade or like a needle, like if you got to heal yourself or pick up when you're fallen comrades. So it's kind of cool, actually. I was kind of hoping we would jump online, but we were just playing bots. So it was all right though. But it was still a pretty cool game. Boy, when they had that level up though, it was like it was a callback. And my one friend he warned me. He's like, "This is kind of like Ghost Recon, like from back in the day on the PC. Like if you just they see a little bit of you, they'll just like start shooting you like immediately." So, and that was kind of like that. So. It's kind of weird, and they kind of like bum rush you too. Like as soon as they one saw you, they just like all came, converged on the one area. But we held it down fairly well for the most part. So, but yeah, so it's a little bit more simplistic. I'm not like flying around the map and doing all this crazy stuff. So yeah, it's definitely you gotta coordinate with your teammates on this one. So otherwise, those, like I said, depending on the level of the AI, they're just going to come at you and just take you out. So probably the simplest, I guess I would say, of as far as controlling stuff. Like I said, nothing super fancy. Like I said, there's no wingsuit or anything like that. So it's just you and your team. You got to coordinate. So it'll be interesting. I do want to try it online at some point just to see how that works out, and see how that community is. So I'll have to check that out maybe this weekend.
So one other VR game that plays super well and at its best when you have teammates who and can be on comms with was Star Trek Bridge Crew. So you want to talk a little bit about your experience playing that game in the Oculus Quest 2?
Yeah, this one was actually pretty fun. So this is one actually I didn't have to walk around if I didn't want to, which was actually kind of nice because this was after playing all these other games that I had to stand up and I was moving around and stuff. So you could actually just sit down and relax on this one, or sort of relax. So yeah, this one you pick a different crewmate on the actual bridge of I think we were just doing like the old style, but like 60s kind of Star Trek. I think they have I think I saw a DLC for the Next Generation that you could do too, but we were just doing like the old school original Star Trek TV Star Trek show. You can be captain, you can be ensign, which was control of the helm. You can be science officer, I believe it was called. I can't remember now. I only played it the one time. We actually played a bunch of different games, so it was kind of nice. A bunch of different rounds, and then tactical, which I believe I did the whole time. I was going to do helm once, but then I had to switch with one of the other guys. So, which is control of the weapons. So that was kind of cool, actually, kind of doing that. And it's not just here's a fire button and here's missile reload, but you have to actually do, at least on my on the one I picked, you have to scan. You have like a map on your little display there of the area you're in. And there's like different things you can scan, or you can do a long range scan where you like send out a probe. So it was actually pretty cool. And this whole time you have to. Well, it's another one too. You have to be constantly talking with the other people, because the captains say, "Hey, I need this scan so I can see what this is. Is it enemy? Is it hostile? Is it is it a hazard or something like that?" Which sometimes happens. It's just like a big asteroid or some kind of mine or something, depending on what the mission is. So it was actually pretty cool. So, and then you had the helmsman. He's obviously taking control of the ship and either warping or just kind of doing the thrusters to kind of just move around the star system or the little area you're in at that point. So it was actually pretty cool. I really like that one. So I want to try to do the different positions. And I think there was only the 4, at least that's as far as I saw. So I don't know if they have more than that or not.
Yeah, you can play engineering as well.
Oh, okay.
Which gives you control of like the ship's power systems, and you can divert power around to weapons and shields and speed.
Oh, okay.
So it's good. So you had a full crew to play that? You had 4 people?
We had 3. So, and then we just had a random person that was playing online. So, right. Which kind of worked out, kind of didn't, depending on the round. So it was kind of random. So yes. You never know what you're going to get. So
yeah. So that would be good. That would be pretty robust. Gray and I played together, and we were trying to cover all things, which depending on what scenario you're running, sometimes that's feasible and works, and then sometimes like they throw so many different things at you. And there was one scenario where like we had to fight off a Klingon ship, but then we also had to like maneuver within proximity of different vessels and shuttles and try and transport people aboard. So it was this constant like we had to get into range, drop the ship. We had to get into range, fight the Klingon off, but then while we were concurrently maneuvering into range, and then once close enough, like pick the right time to drop the shields, transport everybody aboard, which you have you can't you can't maneuver and your shields are down. So your ability to fight off the Klingon at that point, you have to do it at a time where you feel like you can take some of the damage. So yeah, that was a pretty complicated one that we had to play a few times with just the two of us to get it right. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I think that was the only one where I saw like a good amount of bugs. Like, there was one point where a couple times actually we were playing. I was control of the shields. I put the shields up. And, we're going to the battle. He's like, yeah, you got to put the shields up. Like I did. Like it even said on my readout that the shields were up, but on everybody else's, they were showing down. So it's like, so we obviously lost that one because kind of bugged out. And then there was something with the sensors on one of the other guys on one of the other missions. So on most of the other games, though, I didn't really see any big problems. That was probably, and then I actually read up on that Star Trek on the bridge crew, and I guess there is it's kind of buggy basically. So, but supposedly they're going to fix it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the game's only been out for like 3 years, and those are the game bugs, right? But then on top of that, there are VR bugs. So like when Gray and I were playing, and granted, probably several patches ago, but like we would be playing and like you would just lose VR input like on a particular station or a screen. So like the other person would have to take that station's control function to like do the thing and then like pass it back. And then sometimes you would get VR back. Like there were times I had to like shift position over to like another, you don't get up and actually walk across the bridge, but I had to look at a watch station, do VR controls to get over to that station. And then when you get there, you don't have control of like the weapons. So you would have to just like do something else to try and help the situation, have the other person take, tactical or whatever. So yeah, it was always a thing. The way it tended to work is like if a scenario got broken, the scenario would be broken. But then like if you relaunched it and did it over, you typically wouldn't run into that bug again. But yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was gonna be kind of cheesy, but it was actually pretty cool. I actually kind of liked it. It was actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
to do those.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So shifting gears to RPGs, we played a pair of not only RPGs but JRPGs, which is a rare instance on this show. Swiss, you want to talk to us about getting back to Octopath Traveler?
Yeah. So at the recent Nintendo Direct, that team from Square Enix did whatever that triangle game is. Basically taking like the same engine and applying it to like a like more of a tactical RPG. So it reminded me how much I loved Octopath Traveler, and it's one of those games where I feel like the desire to go back to that game more than I have anticipation of upcoming stuff. Like there's a lot of games. I don't know. I guess I've seen games for multiple decades now, and it's just like sometimes it's like there's not new stuff out, and so you just kind of gravitate to what you like, and doesn't matter if it's been out for a couple of years. So this was you made a point about like coming into a game and then remembering what you were doing, and so turns out my last save in Octopath Traveler was January of like 2020. So I was like, oh man, this is not going to be good. But they do have a journal. I knew they had a journal menu item. So you go into the journal menu item, and for each of the 8 characters, it actually has like key, like 1-sentence summaries of key events that you went through. And the way they structure the game is when you're in a particular town, that town might advance the story for 1 or 2 characters. So it's not like you have to like worry about some sweeping narrative. Okay, I'm in this town right now. This character is my active tail. I can look at the journal entries. And the nice thing was you can click the journal entry and it'll replay the cutscene that generated the journal entry. So within like 5 or 10 minutes for this particular character, I had like, I remember that. I don't know what they're talking about. Replay the cutscene. Oh yeah. And then, I was caught up on their tale and could just get right back into it. And while the battle system, I enjoyed the battle system way back when. It's still straightforward enough where, it felt like very natural to get back into it. So I played it a couple of times the last week, and want to make a push to complete it. So
very cool. So the other JRPG that has been in the rotation for me was Final Fantasy XIII, which is over on Game Pass now. So I've been playing it on the Xbox Series S. This, man, now I lose the lead on the dates on this. Was this 2009, 2014?
I
think it was 2000.
been a while.
I think it was 2000.
I know that it was not a well received, like on like the first. I recall like about Final Fantasy 13, like it was a bit of a grind apparently to get it really rolling. And then I thought, when I saw this come up on your playlist, I thought, oh man, Game Logic's gonna hate this. And like, why is he even trying to play it? Like, is he like mad at himself about something? He's punishing himself. I don't know.
I'm actually surprised, not only at the game, but actually in my own uptake of it. And this is part of the story of my gaming life, where after a 2-year sabbatical, living out in the wild, out in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, I am getting back to games that have a definitive beginning, middle, and end. And like I talked about Psychonauts 2, like kind of relaxing myself to allow myself to enjoy the whimsy in between some of the other things that I like hunger and salivate for in games. I recently wrote a blog post where I talked about, I just, after giving myself that time to indulge in that stuff, like Call of Duty is a neuron firing, like adrenaline on fire, like gaming at 120 miles per hour, hands cramped up, like I wear gloves, like drives my carpal tunnel, like to the extreme. Like I don't need that every night, right? So I'm okay taking some time now to kind of dip into some other things. Final Fantasy 13, and I've seen, I saw the articles too about like some people regard it as the worst Final Fantasy, but as is the case with the weird niche that is Final Fantasy fandom, there are other people that put it at different places in the list, and then that causes like vitriolic conversations about like where things should be ranked on the list of all Final Fantasy games, which I'm like, I'm not into that. I'm not into that kind of thing. So, one of the differences is I can't remember what Final Fantasy was, but I tried a Final Fantasy a few years ago, and I think I talked about it on the show, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I talked about like the fact that like I sat through like nearly an hour of cutscenes at the start of the game, and then the game started, and it had nothing to do with any one of the cutscenes that I had seen. I'm like, am I playing a different game? Am I in a different timeline? At least I didn't have that with Final Fantasy 13. It still has the weirdness where it's just like the localization just causes a problem, and I get it. They're trying to translate the tale, but like things get said and things happen that I just seem like totally non sequitur to me, come out of nowhere. There are some weird, like when I look at like the character model of Hope, that feels like a 12 or 13-year-old character, and then I look at the character model of Vanille, which feels like a 16, 17, 18-year-old character, but there's this weird kind of like hints at romance between the two of them, and I'm like, okay, this just makes me feel strange. I'm like, but whatever. So, I think the main part of the tale for me is this experience in the Final Fantasy active time battle system, which is interesting from a mechanical perspective and how it's put together in game design. In the early goings of the game, it doesn't feel like it really matters, right? It still feels like a button mashy, pick things at random. It doesn't really matter how the battle's going to come out. I expect that that's going to get more complicated and complex as time goes on and will matter more. But right now, it's 6 hours or so into the game, like I don't know that it does. And there are and now I'm getting to the point where they're starting to stack. Like I feel like this combined arms effect, right, where they stack multiple different types of enemies into an encounter, and that forces you to have to kind of think and mix and match. One of the things that I'm not super crazy about is like I feel like I constantly have to dive into like three and four different like layers and tunnel downs and different menu systems to remember to do things that may or may not matter. And one of the things is like you have to go to the character screen, to the standard kind of RPG character screen, which if it were a Western RPG, that wouldn't feel strange to me. But something in the presentation of the JRPG layout, it just doesn't, just feels kind of weird to me. And that may just be me, but like you have to go to the character screen and you have to scroll through like four different sub menus to like get into all the different types of equipment and powers and everything to set your characters up for the next encounter. Now, again, at the outset of the game, that doesn't really matter. But now I'm starting to get into the point where, like, oh, you may want to go ahead and equip the thing that buffs your hit points by 50, right? Or, things like that. So, it's been interesting. Like I said, I just had to kind of calm myself down and get myself to a point where I was okay, like, sitting through lengthy cutscenes and, like, weird dialogue and, dropping hints of the story that I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like there's this whole thing about there's the foul C, and then that turns people into Lissy, and then but there's Pulse Lissy, and I'm like 4 hours into the game before I understand whether or not there's a difference between Lissy and Pulse Lissy, or all Lissy Pulse Lissy, and they just drop the pulse every now and then, but then they seem to make a very big deal out of it. Like at other points, like does it matter? Like I don't know. So, and then the story does a weird hitch where it's like you surmount this very difficult obstacle, and then it seems like all is well and good, and then they do something to like kickstart the adventure again, and I'm like, okay, that seemed weird. So, but my hope is that this is a gateway drug to allow me to get into other Final Fantasy games and be a little more patient to let them unfold. I think I've also kind of fixed in my mind that there's a metric of like where I feel comfortable that even if I don't complete a game, that I've gotten something out of a game if I expend like a certain number of hours in it, which has always been there, but it's been much more tethered to the concept of the games that I buy. This is a game that's on Game Pass, so admittedly, maybe in the last couple of years I've been too quick to like drop something at the 2 or 4 hour point if it's not sticking. But I think I've found a little more gravitas and traction to allow something to hang out for a longer period of time. So I've had a fine time in Final Fantasy 13 for what it is, but again, I don't have the backing of the experience of like other Final Fantasy games where that would have been a problem. The only kind of JRPGs I've ever acclimated to are tactical JRPGs, so like a Fire Emblem or a Bravely Default. I don't feel like this is as much in that vein, so I'm okay with it. Just given that it's a delta between tactical RPGs, but it's not consuming as much of my time as some other JRPGs have done in a way that causes me to bounce off of a thing. So, Swiss, I played a platformer earlier, talking about Psychonauts 2, but that was up in our new games and PickZ report. You have also taken interest in a platformer called Risk of Rain?
Yeah, platformer might not be the best way to. It's 2D. This was like an older, like 2013 indie title that my friend's a big fan of, so we got together and played it. And it's it's a 2D, like I guess there's a platformer aspect, but really it's like kind of like this action shooter, and it's kind of a roguelike. He's more of a purist when it comes to that, so he would argue that it's not exactly like that, but it has those elements. So you're on this like planet, and enemies start coming at you, and you have to kill the enemies and eventually you have to find wherever in the level that the portal spawns. You trigger the transporter. You have to survive for 90 seconds and defeat the boss before you can exit the level and move on. So as you're killing enemies, you're leveling up. So a couple of things. One, it's super indie, so that it's like, pixel art, but they don't like the characters on the screen are like teeny. It's like jarring how different it is compared to like it's not like they're like oh, we really had nostalgia for 1993 Super Nintendo. It's like, they have like an Atari character mashed in minuscule inside this massive 2D landscape. So, my friend Kairos, he was like, part of like the theme is kind of nihilistic. So you being small and being slowly overrun by enemies, it kind of adds to that theme. But so it was an interesting. It works. Like you definitely get a sense of like scale more so. And you get the indie feel too. But yeah, as you level up, I like they have some very creative power ups, just different things. Like some of them will be like when you kill an enemy, they catch fire, or you get health. Like pretty straightforward stuff. But other ones, you have frozen like things that freeze around you when you're hovering. So that all works out. So as you're collecting these power ups, then you get you're able to fight more. But the thing is, as time goes on, you will start getting more enemies spawning, and that's kind of when you start to get overwhelmed. So like the difficulty is always ratcheting. So you got to kind of be quick so you can start moving forward in the game before the difficulty gets too far. So yeah, it was kind of cool. Like the bosses, I guess you get to randomly generate a random of set of one of the bosses, and you get this big like magma worm thing that's very Dune, flying up through the screen and down, and it's well done. I played with him, and I liked it enough to give another session by myself. But pretty cheap to get on Steam, and it's one of these things where I'm trying to be a little bit more not creative, but open to some games that I normally wouldn't play. Because when you started throwing like the Deathloop roguelike things up, like I knew it kind of would have had that, but if it's really blasting like in your face like that, that's a red flag for me, and I probably shouldn't invest time in it.
Gotcha. Very cool. So I also spent some time playing some more F1 2021 on the Xbox Series S, but I'm not going to talk about that tonight. Swiss, are you okay bypassing Judgment on PS4 and coming back and talk about that in the later show?
Yeah, I was just basically going to say that it continues to be a favorite right now.
Nice. Have you picked up the sequel's out now, right?
The sequel came out last week. When I thought I was about to get a PS5, I was all geared up to pick it up, but I didn't get into the room fast enough. So
okay. Well, hopefully that will come up as a topic on a future show when you get your PlayStation 5 and get a hold of that game. Next PickZ report. Next PickZ assignment. Over the years, the group has gone hot and cold over betas, sometimes all in, sometimes anywhere from apathetic to downright curmudgeonly. Before the next GX show, the Battlefield 2042 open beta will have dropped, so whether you go all in on that, or select some other beta, or early access, or developer preview, or any of the other 36 different labels the industry gives to these things nowadays, have at it and have fun. Report back your findings, and look out for your teammates out there. So, very interesting. Prime and DBQ and I think thanks to DBQ and the fact that he brought this up and kind of sent out the invite, we'll be getting into the Halo Infinite beta this weekend. Very interesting that I guess the Halo Infinite beta and the Battlefield 2042 beta, both games that are challenged in achieving zeitgeist amongst the gaming community as to whether or not they will be good. I think Halo Infinite's on an upswing now after its most recent test flight. So, but people are anxiously awaiting to see whether or not these games stick the landing or whether they stumble out of the gate. So we'll be checking out at least the Halo Infinite during some Halo Infinite beta, at least during some of our time for this assignment. Swiss, have you given any thought to anything you're going to get into?
One game that was the Nintendo Direct, which is completely 180 degrees out of phase from Halo Infinite. So we'll see. The other part of me was wondering, like, I think for PC gamers, if you're not part of the Halo, whatever it is, you have to be invited. So, I don't know if there's any cross friend code stuff with the Xbox land, but
is it not an open beta on PC?
it's somewhat of an open beta. You got to be in the Halo Insider program on PC, I think, unless you have a friend that shares their one free friend code with you.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing on the Xbox. You have to do the Xbox Insider and then opt in to the Halo Insider hub, and then you can download the beta.
Yeah, but
kind of convoluted.
On Xbox, that's a pretty non-invasive thing. I mean, the concern on PC.
Yeah, I think it's good easy.
Yeah, on PC, the concern would be whether or not it's nagging you all the time. But I'll look into that, Swiss, if there's something that I can extend to you, since I'm on like Game Pass and all that other stuff on PC. That makes it easy for you. I'll see if I can do that. So that's going to be it. Next week is a deep dive episode. DBQ Hams will be back. Absent tonight, but he will be back. He'll be hosting next week. Myself and Towmaster will be shifting into the co-host seats and backing him up on that. Should be an interesting week of news, given some of the things that dropped today. So it seems like the industry always wants to drop news when it's not time for us to talk about, but that's okay. It'll give us a week to, that'll be better than last week. I like having to brief the Nintendo Direct, which just occurred. It had just occurred like 2 hours before we went live. So it'd be nice to take our time and let the news marinate for a little bit. So anything else that you guys want to talk about tonight?
I just had one thing real quick. Something I want to add on to what Swiss was saying about Octopath, how he was kind of more excited about that than kind of anything that was coming out this year. And I was kind of the same way, but I think with this VR headset now, it's kind of sparking my gaming interest a little bit more, just because it's a little, I mean, you kind of have the same kind of shooters and stuff, but it's the gameplay around it's a little bit different, and you have to do things a little bit differently than you normally would, just sitting there with a joystick and smashing buttons the whole time. So it's kind of cool.
So sparking your interest specifically in VR games or in gaming in general?
Just gaming in general.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was kind of the same way. Like, there's really nothing that's excited me, or even looking ahead that's like, okay. I mean, kind of the same stuff, kind of like you were saying. So that's kind of sparks my interest a little bit more.
Oh, cool. Yeah, a little knock-on effect there. Always helpful when something in adjacency reminds you or pushes you to get back to your roots. All right, gentlemen. Well, that's going to do it for us for tonight. For anybody out there who happened to join in on the live stream, we appreciate you. For anyone out there who happens to watch the archive version of this podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, we appreciate you as well. The show is also available on SoundCloud, Pocket Cast, and Spotify, so head over there and download it in case you want to listen to it on the go or in your car during your commute. Until next time, that's going to do it for us. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like and come here to talk about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, here with SwissGuard and Towmaster99. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.